Archer and I drove toward this city, which he called Demias Krai, and it was incredible. At first, all of the outlying areas were just like normal square buildings, different colors, lots of white, lots of stonework. But as we continued to get farther, the buildings got taller and began to rise off of the ground. There were streets that went not just sideways and back and forth, but they went up and down. And as we got toward the heart of the city, we were completely surrounded. At some point, he stopped and used some fancy turn signals, and the cabin of the car turned upward, and we went upward through the street, and it messed with my mind to see buildings on every side and cars going every which way, and everyone had Prophetians in them. It was a Prophethian city, and some people spared us a glance, and it was apparently strange to see humans around here, but no one stopped us. We drove onward, and through a diagonal street that must have been a main highway, there were all these different lanes of traffic, and it was bizarre. And green lights over everything. On the corner of every city, there were green stones. Beautiful in a way, but very, very alien for sure. Eventually we turned onto another road, and Archer parked his car on the end of a long platform with a massive building on the front. And we got out of the car, and we stood on the end of the platform, and there was like a garden area up in front of this massive building. I could see UFOs parked out front, like flying saucers. I thought, that's where those come from. Interesting. And we began to make our way toward the building. And I said, so this is the administration building? And Archer said, yeah, they do administration as well as a bunch of other things. In main part, it's the judiciary and medical center for traveling crimes. And I said, wait, does that mean this is the place where and I felt a sharp pain in my calf, and I looked to see a dart had been shot there, and I tried to pull it out and duck away before Archer could shoot another, but I fell to the ground helpless. I couldn't barely control myself at all. Archer pocketed his gun. He said, yes, gee, this is the place where they deal with people like you. I was honestly surprised to see you in the rebellion. That I thought G would come to me. That's incredible. I'd long ago thought that I'd never regain my status among the Prophethians, but you, G, are going to give me just that opportunity. Thank you for walking into my arms. He pocketed his gun and stood me up. My mind slowed down. I couldn't even speak. My mind was so slow, and I could barely hold myself up. He supported me as he pushed me along, and I stumbled to barely keep up as he pushed me to the main doors and into a massive lobby area. He dropped me onto a chair, and I sat down. I couldn't even get up from there. And he walked to the front to talk with a Prophethian that sat behind a counter there. And as he went to talk, my eyes looked around me, and I saw a human come out of an elevator wearing a white, silvery uniform, and I recognized him. His name was Darren. And as he came towards me, face a mask of dedicated anger, it started to come back to me. This was Darren. This was all his fault, and he was the one that had brought me that forced me to come here by kidnapping Scar and kidnapping Grant, and it all came back to me as Darren stepped towards me. Archer like jumped from the reception desk and ran between me and Darren and said, he was in my district, in my jurisdiction, and he's mine. I'm the one who's taking him in. Darren didn't respond. He stepped inches from Archer's face before saying, G is mine. Stand down. Archer withered beneath Darren's gaze, and as he stepped away, I saw the fury in Darren's eyes, and I didn't blame the man for standing down. Darren grabbed me by my shirt and pulled me up and hauled me toward the elevators, with Archer sputtering behind him. He stepped into the elevator and said something in another language. Maybe it was English and I just couldn't understand it with my mind so muddled. The elevator doors closed and it began to rise. And through my muddled thoughts, one thing was clear. I hated Darren for all of this. And for a moment, my rage overcame my weakness. And I turned all of my strength focused into hitting Darren upside the head. And I barely made it halfway when Darren's hand caught me and twisted behind my back. He shoved my face in the corner of the elevator. And I saw stars and he pulled me back and my hands were in handcuffs. I didn't know when that had happened. But he shook me and said, "Stop it, Reggie, stop it." He said, "I have done everything within my power to stop you from coming here, to stop this from happening, and you stepped right into the Profithians' hands." He said, "I can't help you anymore. And you need to stop fighting and face what you have been calling for the last weeks." The elevator's doors opened and he forced me through and down a long white hallway. He finally stopped in front of a space in the wall and put his hand on the wall, and it opened up, revealing a room inside a hospital bed further in, or it looked kind of like that. He pushed me onto a pedestal and pressed a pedal and let go of me, and a wall appeared around me. Needled arms came down from above and cut the clothes off of me and returned back with cloth that they sewed straight onto me. Not like into me, but onto me. And I watched in despair as my clothes and talon thorn, the scabbard, dropped down into a receptacle below. It hadn't cut off the handcuffs, and it hadn't cut off the ring, Featherlife, but everything else was gone. And the wall disappeared, and Darren grabbed me by the handcuffs again and dragged me over to the operating table. He pressed something on the handcuffs, and I felt myself go weightless and loose and stiff. I couldn't move anything. I couldn't anyway, and he lifted me up like a feather. He separated the handcuffs and placed me on the table and strapped me down. And he said, "You've brought this upon yourself, G. I'll see if there's anything that I can do to stop a full wipe and see if I can prevent other things from being taken away. But at this point, I don't know what I can do." I couldn't move my head. It was secured into place. When Darren left my field of view, before he left, he said again, "I'm sorry," and left the room. Not long after, another Profithian came in, holding a clipboard of some kind, and pressed a button underneath me on the bed. It came up into a sitting position, and he stood in front of me, and he said, "Reginald Ballast, Seer of World 09826, Earth. You've been charged with unlicensed traveling, harboring and manipulation of gates, manipulation of natives, and interdimensional murder. For these and other crimes, you are being sentenced to exile on world 24583 Skynor. Your traveling abilities will be removed, and if any further, if you act further against the Profithian Empire, you will be punished more severely. And he continued to talk on, but I couldn't help but feel rage at all of this, and I couldn't do a thing. I still couldn't move. I was kind of starting to get feeling back, but my mind was in no state to be able to use the Force, and I couldn't do anything. I watched in dismay as the Profithian came and pressed buttons underneath the bed again to put it back down in a laying position. And he grabbed a circular thing from to the side of my head and pulled it over me. It went completely over my field of vision. And he said, "This will be painful. Get ready." He spoke through a translator, by the way. He spoke in Profithian, and it spoke it out in English. I could hear him press buttons on the outside, and I saw a pattern of lights flash on the inside, and they grew brighter and more intense to the point that it became painful. As the light grew, I felt a pressure, and my head began to build up, and I felt my mouth begin to move and my vocal cords begin to speak. I wasn't controlling it or saying it, but I felt the words pour out of my mouth as I said, "Sired in world of own shall be the saviour of the dark, and we that see not, lest a mind break forth to free the lost, to right the course, when life of feather and reproof our path from thought to world of truth. Not long acquainted lead, but new, and one the broken guide him through, and one to worlds and one to stay, but both to darkness both betray. And thus the gift shall take its course, and steed to driver, rider horse. To end the rule, a life required, when seer verse seer, the seer that sired to kill shall fall, and all shall see that all as once again shall be." The light became blinding to the point that everything flashed white and pain coursed through my body before everything plunged into darkness. End of chapter 20.